Welcome to episode 57 of the Sports Geek podcast. This is a very special episode. It's a replay of a panel from a C conference in Miami with guests from the NFL, MLB, ESPN, and more.
Welcome to the Sports Geek podcast, the podcast built for the sports digital marketer. And now, here's your host, who won't be found on Tinder, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. Today's episode is simply a replay of the keynote panel that I did on Tuesday. It was the first panel I was able to do with the recovered voice. The title of the panel was the Trifecta, Technology, Digital, and Fan Engagement. And the guests on the panel were Michelle McKenna-Doyle, CEO of the NFL, Joe Inzerillo, the EVP and CTO of Major League Baseball Advanced Media, Eric Johnson from ESPN, EVP of Multimedia Sales, Fred Kirsch, VP of Content at the New England Patriots, and Junior Gaspard from Experience. I hope you enjoy it. Cheers. I think we'll get started. Hopefully everyone had a good night last night. There's probably a few weary heads in the audience. My name's Sean Callanan. I'm from Sports Geek, and I'm here to present a keynote session with these esteemed colleagues on the trifecta of technology, digital, and fan engagement. So we've got a really great panel, really great breadth of experience in the panel, and also a great breadth of experience of industry. A couple of leagues, we've got the NFL and Major League Baseball Advanced Media represented, New England Patriots, experiences in that in the stadiums space, and last but not least, ESPN from a media perspective. So what I wanted to do is first introduce the panel and then kick off the discussion, because we had a conference call about this a couple of weeks ago and we didn't lack for any conversation, so we're going to get stuck into it. So first of all, I'll introduce the panelists. We've got Michelle McKenna-Doyle, SVP and CIO of the NFL. Welcome, Michelle. I've got Junior Gaspard, VP of Sales from Experience. We've got Joe Inzerillo, EVP and CTO of Major League Baseball Advanced Media. Fred Kirsch, Publisher and Vice President of Content for New England Patriots. And Eric Johnson, Executive VP, Multimedia Sales at ESPN. And he did say he was probably one of the only people last night to go about 2 a.m. sober. He only just flew in last night. So thank you very much for being here this morning, Eric. So I want to get started with you first, Michelle. Looking at the NFL and what the NFL has done to analyse what the fans want in the stadium, and it seems that the NFL is one that is really battling that couch fan versus the stadium fan. So you want to take us through some of the analysis and research you've done to understand the fan?
Sure. We are. There we go. All right. So yes, absolutely. It has been, and we still hold that the best place to watch an NFL game is in an NFL stadium. However, the in-home experience has certainly raised the bar on expectations. So up until last year, we really relied on a Voice of the Fan survey that we did for every club, multiple games. And it told us just pretty much what we expected, that connectivity was an issue in almost every stadium, some being better than others. But we wanted more empirical data. So this year we partnered with Extreme Networks and deployed their Purview Analytics Wi-Fi analytics system. And we have began to use it in many of our stadiums, and specifically the Super Bowl. And it was able to gather traffic patterns, data, not only what people did, but how long they did it, and multiple tries for multiple applications. And it really wasn't a surprise in general, but we did learn some things about how to tune the network, number one, just technically, and then number two, how to prioritize traffic. For example, at the Super Bowl last year, we learned that approximately 20% of the people using Wi-Fi were running operating system updates or app updates. And that is a major user of bandwidth that shouldn't be prioritized. So looking at how to prioritize the traffic helps technically. So we started that last year and are continuing that program along with having in-stadium fan audits. So we have now people that from our team in New York go to every game and they actually record and not only the connectivity but the whole in-stadium experience.
So as the Wi-Fi problem, historically it ceased. I remember in LA in 2011, I think there was a $5 fine every time someone talked about the Wi-Fi and the DAS problem. That's becoming less and less of a problem now. So I wanted to ask Junior, now that the Wi-Fi is kicking in, what are you seeing teams doing? And tell us about, you were talking to me before about what Alabama are doing as far as to engage that fan because you have got that connectivity.
Yeah, so can you guys hear me? So yeah, I talked to Sean and the team a little bit about our work with Alabama, and just to set the stage for everyone, so teams use us to enhance the game day experience for fans in the venue, specifically via the mobile device. And I thought Alabama was a good story because they redefined a 60-year-old tradition that they have using mobile technology. So based on who you are, who you're with, and why you're at a game, the thing that makes that game memorable for you is going to vary. So if I go with my little girl or if I go with my dad, that game is going to be different for me. So Alabama has a tradition called the A-Day game. It is a spring intra-squad scrimmage, red versus white, and Michelle can appreciate this as an Auburn fan. College football is a big deal in the Southeast. So there you go. And they get over 60, 70,000 people to come out to this intra-squad scrimmage, and it's almost a thank you to the people at Tuscaloosa because it's free to the general public, and these are fans who might not otherwise get a chance to come to an Alabama game because they don't have season tickets. So what Alabama did was they looked at the assets that they had, which were some reserve seating areas, they had locker room tours, they had field passes, and said, let's put those assets in the hands of our fans via mobile and let those fans choose what things would make the game memorable for them on that day. So they were able to impact thousands of fans at the venue who had an incredible experience. There was a dad who drove from Michigan with his son and talked about how the ability for him to do this locker room tour had created this perfect memory for him and his little boy. There was another fan who upgraded their seats or be able to get into reserved seating and talked about how they created this perfect memory. So really, that was a good example, I thought, of how a school was being innovative and using mobile to really redefine this tradition that they've been playing since 1946 when Harry Truman was in office. So.
Exactly, and on the mobile fan and the fact that you're engaging the fan via the mobile, I want to talk to Joe from a BAM perspective. We talked about so far the in-stadium fan. But BAM does so much work from a technology point of view to engage that out of network, out of the location, out of the team zone. Because if you're a Red Sox fan living in Miami, you've got to subscribe to your service to be able to catch those games. So how has BAM sort of looked to the fan outside of the market and really getting us to lean in like we are in these couches with BAM's apps?
Well, our apps are generally a lot safer than this couch, first and foremost. Because if I go like this, I'm gone, and it's really a four-person panel. But, I think that the thing that I always think about when you talk about fans and where you engage them and things like that is there's no percentage people. So people are like, well, 30% of fans want to do this. Well, market segmentation sometimes dehumanizes the aspect of fandom. People are fans all the time. If you love a team, you love a team. And so then it's really about, well, what context and what assets do you want with that context? And so for us, I think a lot of it is really about consistency and access and making sure that we have the right thing for what you're looking for. And so, the flagship sort of mobile product that we have is AppBad, which is top grossing app in sports at this point in time. Since the beginning of the iTunes store, I think we were app number 4 in the iTunes store. And we bet early and often on trying to get that access to the fan. And sometimes you want to watch your out-of-market MLB TV game, like you were mentioning. But sometimes you just want to see the highlight, or sometimes you just want to see a live look-in that says, hey, we have a perfect game in progress. You don't really know, and so you want to sort of give the fans what they want, or give them an array of things that they can choose from, and then democratically people are going to pick if they're the, hey, I want to watch a live game fan, or if I just want to score and push notification, things like that. They're going to figure it out. And so I think what we really focus on is trying to bring that very consistent, very broad and deep vertical, sort of self-chosen vertical for fans to go down so that they get the user story that they're looking for at that point in time. And that ties into the ballpark. It also ties in when they're outside the ballpark. Because again, they're a fan no matter what. And so their device is a very personal thing. It should adapt its personality to the context that they're currently in. At least that's the way we look at it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in the conversations that we've had so far, especially from the mobile point of view, and John McCauley was talking about this yesterday, it is about the app is about providing the best user experience that it can provide, and that's a matter of wherever you are, whether you're in the stadium, whether you're on your couch, or whether you're sitting on the beach. You should be able to pick it up, and it should be your app. It's not Major League Baseball's app or the NFL's app. It's your app, and I think that's where it's evolving. It sort of leads me to the question to Fred at the Patriots. It's a completely different focus for a team point of view to a league, because you're really targeting your fans. How is you from a content? How do you go about engaging your fans? How is that different from what a league would do at an NFL level?
Yeah, we're waging the same battle that Michelle said. We're fighting. I call them the 3 C's: cost, comfort, and convenience of home. You can't compete with that in a stadium, so you have to focus on the other things that, for example, emotion, energy, entertainment, things that the home can't compete with at the stadium. So when the person leaves that game for whatever reason, there's some moment that they realize that, wow, I'm glad I was there to witness that or see that. Now, obviously winning helps. I think that's the most important factor, but it's the one you have the least control of. So we work on a number of things, technology-wise, and I kind of divide them up into 2 sections. Things that fans never had that we're introducing, and those are great, but then also focusing on making the things that they've come to expect a little better. Some of that is through technology, and one example, bathrooms are something that people expect to have when they come to the game. And President Shalala mentioned a couple days ago how if you don't think bathrooms are important at a venue, you're missing the boat. And it really resonated with me. She's right. One of the things we did last year was do a little bathroom wait time feature on our game day app where you're sitting in your seat, it's time to go, you type in your section number, and it will give you the wait times for the 5 closest bathrooms to you. Little thing. Now, does everyone use it when they come to the game? No. Probably a couple hundred per game use it. But for those couple hundred, that's a cool little feature. And to what Joe is saying, give people all these things and let them choose democratically what they want to use on a game, and just keep trying things and hold people, find out what they like, find out what they didn't like, and just keep trying things to try to compete against that home experience.
I mean, I think that's really important to make your app a utility for your fan. So they have a reason to open it up, whether it's a seat upgrade, a highlight, or a wait time for the bathroom, or where is the nearest beer line. Like, there's a reason for them to open the app. I mean, we can get people to download an app, but it's getting them getting back to use it. And so if you put that utility as part of your app, that becomes something, and that becomes a story, a part of the experience. Someone says, "Oh, did you know you can open the app and it'll tell you where the shortest line is?" Eric, I wanted to talk to you about where ESPN is taking, I guess, this engagement with the fan, and how important mobile is in that space as far as reaching the fan that is on the move all the time.
Yeah, if you were to go to Bristol, Connecticut, you'd see scrawled on pretty much every wall in every building the company mission, which is really simple: to serve sports fans anytime, anywhere. And it really is almost a religion in Bristol to be able to try to accomplish that. For a company that was built on being a cable television network at one point, and then 7 networks, and then a mobile company and a production company and all of that, it is a company that's very focused on live. And so from a television perspective, 96% of everything ESPN is consumed live. And that's very different than what's happening in terms of the television model, and it's helped to influence the way the company thinks about out of home with the mobile device in terms of what that usage is. We used to have 65 different apps and growing. We didn't have a bathroom app, but it was probably coming out of Bristol at some point. And we really distilled it down into just a few. And the goal of that is to make all the types of usage you'd want available within one application that has your choice of personalization to be able to choose how you want to interact with that. The goal for the company, which was interesting, is the company used to focus on what do we have, what does other people have. So CBS and Turner has March Madness, NBC, CBS, Fox, they have NFL. We have this, we have that. The reality is the top 20 mobile usage days for ESPN are 20 days that we don't have any television programming. It's 17 NFL Sundays, it's a Super Bowl, and it's the first 2 days of the NCAA tournament. So to get the company to realize that from a mobile perspective, every event is your event is the way that we try to think. We try to be that second screen to any sporting event that exists, whether it's in home, a secondary usage at home, or out of home, supplying what the live sports environment looks like.
So we've got this spectrum of fans from in the stadium, engaged with the game, and using their mobile to further that engagement and deepen that engagement, to the fan on the move, to the fan at home. Michelle, I wanted to talk to you. We've got all these fans now. How do we not bombard them with constant messages from all the teams and all the partners like the NFL and the Patriots? How do you get that mix right?
Yeah, I think that is very critical. I mean, there's so much excitement about talking to fans that pretty soon you can feel overwhelmed as a fan with all the communication. But it needs to be self-directed and subscribed, having a utility app that has the features that you're interested in, and opting into the kinds of things that you want to opt into is first. That's sort of basic CRM rules. But what we looked at the NFL was we wanted football to be top of mind, not just a couple times a year, but all year. So we filled the calendar with multiple events that we agree with all 32 clubs that these are the banner events. And during these events, there will be messaging that will come from the NFL around those events. And then each club is also required to talk to fans during that sort of event about that event. And so it's pretty well coordinated. But there are also times when we agree at the NFL that we're going to go dark with messaging around general NFL or NFL Mobile or NFL Network or NFL Shop so that the clubs can market season tickets and have that type of activity. That has been something that is a challenge for an organization that is, we're not a command and control organization. We are on some things, but on these type of things, it takes collaboration and cooperation across a lot of different organizations. And so a lot of our work is spent with the clubs making sure we've got an integrated communication calendar that we understand. We learned through that integrated communication calendar and the types of content that people wanted that there was a great demand for NFL content, video, more and more. So that's the launch of NFL Now that is happening later this summer for this season. And so that's a new product, but we have to be very conscious about launching that product and having it trump or fall over and take the airspace away from the clubs and their app communications. So it does take quite a bit of coordination. So it's not, the technology's great and cool, but less and less, as you said, hopefully next year we won't still be talking about the need for Wi-Fi. I mean, certainly we haven't proven that by now. And then we should be talking more and more about how and when and personalization and communication to our fans.
So I want to go back to one of the key parts of the trifecta, which is the fan engagement. At the moment, we're still focusing on the technology and digital in broadcast mode, if you will. But from a fan engagement point of view, it's probably going to throw it more down to Eric and Fred around the storytelling element and how important that is to engage the fans. So first, Eric, just talk a little bit about how ESPN frames stories, gets people involved in the conversation by pitching those stories and getting involved, and then I want to hear from Fred around the same, hearing from the Patriots fans.
there's an expectation from fans now to be a part of the conversation. They ultimately are on their way to being the producers, and you guys certainly do at BAM do a wonderful job of allowing folks to feel like that. It is an expectation to be involved with that. So everything that we're building is built with the notion of having increased personalization as part of that, and allowing them to be able to be the choosers of what they're going to take in as part of that experience. It's interesting, you talked about in-stadium. I just wanted to say one thing. I just got back from Brazil. I was fortunate enough to go to the World Cup final. And the in-stadium experience, it was an epiphany. I guess this always happens, but it was to a degree that I'd never seen. I pulled out my camera to take a video view of what was happening on the pitch at the very opening of the stadium. And when I pulled out my camera, I realized that every single person around me had their camera out and was filming it. So I ended up filming the people instead of filming the pitch, because I just thought it was so interesting in the idea that this is the expected experience.
So how many people in the audience saw someone in their Facebook friend feed post a video or pictures from Brazil? There you go. Yeah,
it was 65,000 fans. It was 35,000 at least that were pulling that out. So to me, it was like this aha moment of that's the expectation, even in stadium, for a company that doesn't focus so much on in stadium as much as the other panelists here do. You have to take that into consideration. That's an expectation.
Yeah, we had at the Super Bowl, this past Super Bowl, 3.2 terabytes of uploaded data. It was mainly photos.
Yeah. And they do. They want to brag and they want to push it out there. So Fred, you would have a ton of content that's coming from Patriots fans, Instagramming and putting up vines and those kind of things. How do you take that and bring that back into your realm and make them part of the story that you're producing with your content?
I've been with the Patriots since 1995, and looking at the consumption and patterns of digital content. Back then, and through the 90s, probably Sunday was our least traffic day on .com. That's changed. Now, of course, Sunday is our most traffic day for all our digital platforms. And it's because of, people now understanding that, there's a second screen there to supplement. So we do a lot of things to really supplement the fans' experience, particularly on game day. One of the things, I do a blog during the game, a live blog that allows fans from all over the world to send in questions, and when I can look down, I answer as many as I can. I have, on average, about 18,000 unique people on that blog during the game. And that's thousands of questions that are coming through. I answer, maybe 100 or so during the course of a game, but the point is, they're all looking to be part of a community during the game, even if they can't be at the stadium. Another thing we do is we do a little pregame show on our Facebook page. And during that, we're soliciting people to send us our photos from the parking lot or from wherever they are getting ready to watch the game. That might be a sports bar in Arizona, or it could be a beach in Brazil. And people they send us their photos, and we'll post them right up on the Facebook page while we're doing this IP radio show. And it's just another way to make people feel like they're part of that Patriots community on game day, the day that everyone gathers.
So Joe, I'll come back to you in a second. I just want to talk to you about, if you can, about 120 and it's starting up in that space, being that short form video and trying to get to that fan. You want to tell us a little bit about that? Sure. And what its idea is?
Sure. 120, for those who haven't seen it, is a collaboration between us and several of the other sports leagues and Sports Illustrated and Silver Challenge out in Chicago, where the show's produced, where it's basically 120-second segments, and so they basically go through all the sports, whatever's top of mind. Sports at the speed of Twitter, I think, was one of the original taglines. We may or may not have killed that. I don't remember. But the notion is that it is a live linear. You can just sit back, you can watch segments and just go from topic to topic to topic. But it's also, from a tech standpoint, pretty slickly done in the fact that all of those 120-second segments become available as immediate VOD or immediate highlights, and they're very hyper shareable, hey, you got to see this. You can follow a topic, so if there's an emergent topic that's out, so-and-so is going to get traded, so-and-so, is injured or whatever. You can see it unfold over the course of the day in these segments, and then things can get updated. And I think it's, I think it gets back to everything that we're talking about. It's the notion, it was originally one of those things where like the broadcast model was this concept of like one to everybody. And then it was, it's asymmetric sharing, where it's like a few very big trendsetters to everybody as well. But we're getting more and more asymmetric in that, I think. And it's a participatory thing. Like I want to go to participate in, it's the digital face paint. It's supporting the team in that way that people are really doing. And I think 120 is sort of the extension of it. It kind of aligns with what we're doing at BAM too, where it's really like giving, again, folks the tools. One of the things I talk about, content discovery, because all of the sharing is great, but if you don't have a way of discovering it, it doesn't really do you much. And I was wondering, when you think about it, how many people bookmark things in your browser anymore? I mean, if you go back 10 years, like that's how you got around the internet. It was like, there's this site I'm going to go to, and that's my trusted site. And it's just not that way anymore. It's all about content discovery. And if you look at younger demographic, they don't even know what a bookmark is. They're like, what's that? They don't remember what a book is, and therefore bookmark, and then the abstraction of the bookmark are all pretty foreign concepts. But they search, they follow, they go to see what their friends watching. They do all these different mechanisms in order to garner content. And I think, if you look at things like the music industry and what's happened with a lot of the stuff there, it's like, how do people even discover new music? It used to be very clear. You listen to the radio. That's what it was. Where you went to a nightclub and you heard something, that's what it was. Sports is in that point of inflection where we're all trying to figure out how you come up with the next metaphor of what that looks like. And so I think 120 is a pivot on that metaphor. I think what we're doing in a bad metaphor are pivots on that metaphor. And I think a lot of the other folks have mentioned a lot of things that people are playing with. And it's very cool. And a lot of them are going to stick, and a lot of them are going to be, go forward concepts. And several of them will hit the floor, flame out. And that's part of the fun of it right now, is being at that inflection point, really trying to understand how much the sports fan wants to feel official and how much they want to feel like they're a fan in the parking lot tailgate.
Definitely. I think a friend of mine just recently released a book called The Great Fragmentation. And that's exactly what's happening in the world of sports. We're going from where traditional media would show a ball game from the 3 hours, and now we're getting these bite-sized chunks that are bringing people back to the game. Like NFL Red Zone, that's bringing people back to the game. I think when the IPL first broadcast on YouTube, there was that fear of, oh no, it's going to detract from TV and people aren't going to watch TV, they're going to watch it. But all of a sudden it showed the more people watched the clips on YouTube, the more they watched on TV. So, those sort of short clips that you're putting out with 120 will drive more people in. Back to the storytelling and allowing the fans to tell their story. So how are the teams you're working with experience making sure that the fans are telling that story, that they had that great experience? How are they leveraging that in what they're doing?
Yeah, we see a lot of teams using social and encouraging fans to post images and tweet about their experience at the games. And just to go back to something that Fred touched on earlier, one of the questions that we get often is, hey, doing all this technology and all this stuff to enhance the experience, is that going to take away from folks actually watching the game in the venue while they're there? Are they just going to want to not even think about the product on the field? And I go back to at the beginning, all of these folks are fans, and they're there for the game. They're there to create that perfect memory. So you want to have this technology to enhance it while they're there, but not to distract from the product ultimately on the field. I think Joe may have touched on it with Fred earlier. You want to create a memory that 10 years from now, you're going to remember you were in the stadium when that happened and had an incredible time, not that you were sitting on your couch watching a particular game. But yeah, we see a number of teams encouraging fans from social, Facebook, Twitter, a number of things to get the content out there and share their experience at the game. And I go back to the thing that makes a game memorable varies significantly from person to person. One of our teams that we work with is the Minnesota Twins, and they had a fan that had purchased a ticket. He was going with his dad, and then his dad had to have hip surgery or something like that, so he couldn't get around. But the ability for them to upgrade to an accessible seat category on the phone was amazing for this fan, because his situation had changed from the time he bought the ticket until he was going to the game, and he didn't even know that was a category available for him to upgrade into. So again, the thing that makes the game memorable is going to vary from fan to fan based on your situation. So we see teams using it in a lot of different ways.
So Michelle, I wanted to ask you about the Together We Make Football campaign and what the NFL has done with that.
Yeah, so to your point around fans wanting to contribute and belong, it became a national campaign for the NFL, advertised on the Super Bowl, and a year-long plan that came out of our fans telling us that was the most important thing to them, was to feel that they were part of the game. And so our marketing department really branded a whole campaign called Together We Make Football. It asked our fans to upload their NFL story, and unbelievable stories from I was engaged at this game, I was married at this game, my parents had their 50th wedding anniversary here, or my first child is named after this player. And we got some amazingly emotionally touching stories, and that became really a campaign and also a contest. So the top 4 winners were brought to the Super Bowl last year. And so those are the kinds of things that fans are driving, because they're sharing their stories, and that content is so compelling that it's better than a content that we would create, or a story that we would create. And we find, to go back to the in-stadium experience, is if you synchronize your device experience with your scoreboard experience and with your in-stadium entertainment, you really take it to the next level. Some clubs have done this amazingly well, so that the experience on the phone isn't a disjointed experience, but it's integrated with the whole plan. And that's what our goal is to do for the Super Bowl, and also many of our the producers that run the in-stadium shows are great producers of live entertainment, and that's when it can really, so going to the music analogy, concerts do that really well, and you're doing it here with a live Twitter feed. Those are the kinds of things that make it so integrated that it doesn't take away from the game itself.
So a question for the panel. So what is your focus for the next 12 months? If we come back in seed next year in San Francisco, what will we be discussing of what is your focus? I'll start at the other end. What's the focus for ESPN in the next 12 months as far as engaging the fan?
It continues to be on the bleeding edge of live in everything that we do. We've launched a Watch ESPN app that hopefully all of you have downloaded and used and authenticated through your provider. But just in terms of something like the World Cup, we saw 3.5 million new unique individuals who've now authenticated and are part of that experience. The notion of having daytime, midweek sports is just becoming a reality that people are consuming it at a high level. The Watch ESPN app would have been the 6th rated cable network just from an authenticated streaming standpoint, to give you a sense of scale of how many folks are willing to be able to experience sports in this way. So that's one experience in terms of live streaming. The other experiences in terms of live is in terms of continuing to build out what is our GameCast functionality, how you follow sport live when you're not actually watching the video of that sport. And I think we have some things that we're going to be unveiling over the next 12 months that I think will be very interesting on the iOS device as well as Android, in terms of how we're going to uniquely tailor them to those experiences. So I think that's the most important thing.
Fred, what about yourself? What are you focused on for the next 12 months?
Well, relevant to this discussion, particularly in our Game Day app, which is an app specifically for people coming to the game, we're going to be obviously looking to improve that. We're going to be expanding our in-seat ordering, to more locations. And just to clarify that, that's people ordering in their seat, paying by phone, and then being alerted when their food's ready and picking it up at an express line with no wait. We don't do the in-seat delivery, but it's an express line. So we're going to be expanding that program and promoting it a little bit more. Last year we considered a pilot program. Now we're going to promote it a little bit more. We're experimenting with multicast now for some of our live exclusive video in the app during games. So we're looking at Yinscam is building their own multicast platform. So we're looking at integrating that into our app to see if that is any better than what we've got right now, which we think is pretty good. But we're always looking to improve. So we're open to that. And, we'll be adding a lot of new features that I don't want to talk about right now because I want our fans to be the first ones to know about them. But, just to make that app experience better. And then, on the other side, I talked about making the things that people have already had better. Within our stadium every year, and this year is no exception, we're always looking to, make the stadium itself better. Whether it's the seating areas or the parking areas, the concession booths. If you go to Gillette Stadium right now, you might look at it and say, there's no way they're going to be ready for the season. We will be, but there's a lot of construction going on, building, and it's all part of adding value to the fan experience. We do that every year.
What about yourself, Joe? What's BAM's focus for the next 12 months to step up the game yet again?
Well, yeah, I think that there's a lot of tactical stuff that we've been sort of talking about, but I think that, where my mind's at, and where I think that we're spending a lot of effort is really trying to focus on the notion of identity and friction to that identity. And so part of the thing is we have a whole bunch of different stuff out here. There's this app and this thing and this little way over here and this. It's all really like hyper-fragmented, like you said, but it's also creating this friction that exists that prevents people from doing things easily. And so I think, if you look, for example, at the airline industry, most of them have got it pretty right. You have a frequent flyer program, you have this loyalty thing, you can kind of get on, you get your stuff digitally, you can do all this sort of stuff. If you look at us in sports as a whole, we got a long way to go still. And there's all sorts of historical reasons for it, and this vendor, this thing, etc. But ultimately, what we're really trying to look at is trying to wrap that up into something that's a little bit more clean, a little bit more like a real loyalty program that really every aspect of your fandom that touches us, we can reward and we can try to give you a better experience. We can try to offer you something maybe you didn't know existed. And really trying to lock that in. And from that drives tons of technology. Baseball bet this year very heavily on BTLE. I had a program in my capital forecast that was 5 ballparks I was going to put beacons on. We're at 29 right now out of 30. And so the ramp has just been incredible on something like that. But proximity is a part of removing that friction. Like, why do you have to go navigate an app when I'm like, oh, he's standing in front of the beer sign, or he's at the gate, let me pull up his digital ticket. And so that's what we're really looking at, is trying to remove a lot of the friction that's around that uniquely we can do as a league and as a community of teams. That would be harder to do for other folks, but really trying to see if we can nail that. Because, as I said, I think airlines, by and large, are a great example of getting it right with a very small feature set, and we're in a very, very large feature set, and we think that we can get it even more right than what we've done in the past. So that just, again, taking the friction out of it and trying to rally around the notion of an identity that can be rewarded from a fan loyalty standpoint is something that we're really focused on.
What about yourself, Junior?
Yeah, we're actually working on a lot of what Joe just talked about around beacon technology. So we did some work around that with the Orlando Magic towards the end of this past season. And it's interesting. Fans get excited about the opportunity to know what's happening based on their identity, who they are, and where they are in the stadium. And we saw a lot of excitement around that towards the end of the season. So I think next year when we get together at SEAT, we'll have some good stories around that. The other thing that we're working on are a lot of things around millennials specifically. I know there's a lot of conversation with teams about the way millennials buy tickets and the way millennials think about their experience at the game, and it's much more flexible and it's more social as opposed to just going to the game. So we're working with a number of our teams around products and categories and opportunities specific to that millennial buyer, because you think of the way they go to games, it's just very, very different than the way people go to games today. So that's another piece. And then the third thing is around loyalty. So a number of our team partners have invested in loyalty solutions, and they're looking for ways to make it easier for fans to use the points and really just maximize the opportunity related to those loyalty solutions. So we're going to be doing more with those products. So those are the three things I probably point to that next year at SEAT we'll be talking about.
What about yourself, Michelle? We started the conversation talking about the studies you've done with the fans.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the analysis.
Mm-hmm.
Part of what the fans know. It's always a big project to understand your fans. What did the NFL want to do in the next 12 months?
So we have a season to pull off. First and foremost, by next year, we'll have another Super Bowl, which we are planning to be a much more engaged Super Bowl. Our goal at this Super Bowl, typically we don't know who actually ends up using the Super Bowl ticket, because they don't typically, they get bought in bulk, or and then the actual user of the ticket, we don't typically know what they do. So this year, through technology and through partnering with looks like Experience and Extreme Networks, we're going to give incentives for people to tell us where they're sitting and what they're doing, and using beacons to talk to them. So also this year, a big effort for us, think about it being a fan issue, but the number one fan issue that people talk about on game day, often officiating. And so,
is there going to be an app to fix that?
Well, let's just say there's going to be a lot more transparency into that. This year we are very, very busy. That's why I'm the only person from the league office that was able to attend. We're doing a centralized consultation under the hood of every referee. When they go under the hood, they're on live with us in New York. We will be tweeting the results along with short video segments of why we made that call immediately, instead of, and then have that. We believe that'll be one of the most shared content on Sunday. It certainly is what kills.
Talked about.
Yeah, it's what kills the commissioner's voicemail on Monday. So hopefully, by tweeting it out ahead of time, we can avoid those phone calls. And then our draft is on the move. So for the first time, we're moving the draft out of New York City next year. So by the time we're here next, we'll be able to talk about what that was like and how fans either engaged or stepped up their level of engagement based on us traveling to fans versus them having to come to New York. So a lot happening in this world. I think your airline example is a really good one. I spent 14 years at Disney. And I can tell you the difference between airlines and Disney and sports is that we got to just decide things. So if we decided we wanted a loyalty program, we decided it, we built the data warehouse, we rolled it out, everybody participated, there was no opt-in, no opt-out. For us, 32 clubs, some want to be in, some don't want to be in, some want to spend money on this stuff, some don't want to spend. So to get a true fan loyalty, it's going to have to come from the fans finally saying, enough already. We have to have this. So quit your, sort of club by club decision making, and never, look at it from my point of view as a fan versus your point of view of 32 separate profit centers. So I think that's the harder part to get us to where other companies have been able to get to, is that the governance model is much more difficult for us. Who owns that fan data? Who is it? The clubs? It should be. And so that's some of the things that we hope to work out between now and next year, is a really strong governance model to make it comfortable for everyone to participate in the fan engagement, and really mean it when you say fan first.
Well, everyone then just talked about that relationship with the fan, and the fact that the fan is quite willing to give up that data, or data, depending where you're from in the world. In that relationship, because they're quite willing, because it's that tribalism that they have with the sport, and even more so than airline. Like I'm happy to give my information to my football club than to my frequent flyer club, and then and also I'll tell you where I am with beacon technology and that kind of thing. So where do you think the relationship between both league and teams and media partners, where is that relationship heading? As far as how much we know about them, and then how can we set experience for them?
I think it is absolutely, we're going to know more. We have the opportunity to know more about our customers than any other industry. They want to tell us, even without incentive, they want to tell us. And that's because they want to share their memories. So I think it does start at who you're a fan of. You can be a fan of the NFL, but you're more likely a fan of the Patriots or the Packers or the Seahawks. And so that's where the relationship starts. And we have to enable all of our clubs to be able to have that one-to-one relationship, so that then we can grow it at the league level, and then have it drive things like NFL Now and the broadcast agreements that bring in the lion's share of our revenue. So it starts by aggregating. You talked about there was a lot of worry with these little apps and things take away from the television contracts. Well, we found it to be the opposite. It's the great aggregator. So live sports is still the great aggregator
And
on
it's still a
broadcast
premium,
television.
and it's still a premium product, as Eric said
Even
before.
though it is big, so I think we'll just see more and more of that.
What about yourself, Joe? Where do you think the relationship with the fan is headed?
Well, I definitely think people are willing to give up a lot more information to us because of that fandom side of it. But it's an enormous responsibility at the other side. So it's a really double-edged sword, because if the data that you're collecting isn't working for them and is only working for you, then they won't be so willing to give it up. And so it really comes down to trying to figure out what are like actionable, meaningful things that you can do with that. You know, part of it is not having to ask people things twice. So, for example, something simple like, hey, what's your favorite team? And by the way, if you ever use your credentials to log into any other MLB thing, you're going to know what your favorite team is. I think is a great example of making the data work for the fan. Why am I asking you more than once? Just because this app was built by this company or that app was built by that company, that's an internal thing. That shouldn't be a fan-facing thing. And so I think taking the data in, understanding how to make it meaningfully actionable, is really what it gets down to in that concept of loyalty and that concept of reward, and the concept of just giving them the bullhorn. I mean, simple things like we've had different folks like Stephen Colbert and other people, take over the MLB Twitter handle for a day. That's fun. And, it's an accessible thing that a fan can do. If you're the most creative person, whatever, you can have a shot at that. And so really, I think that it's learning how to play all of these various different instruments we have, like an orchestra. And right now, it sounds a lot more like a tune-up, I think, in general, where, the oboe's over here and the flute guy's over there, and we got some strings that are still tuning. And so we're starting to get the right instruments, and we're starting to hear a little bit of harmony on it, but we're really not at the point where it's a symphony yet. And I think that's what we're really looking at, too. And, there are a lot of roles in the symphony where it's just pluck the string 3 times, and that's what you do for the entire movement, right? And that's where I think that we have to be really careful, is that we're not overusing some of these instruments. And that's where people are going to start to tune out, or that's where people are going to have bad experiences. And, the reality is that, at some level we compete with the other leagues for entertainment value, or even our TV partners or whatever. There is a rising tide lifting all boats or sinking all boats. And so if a particular league or team or broadcast network does something that makes people feel like, that's really creepy, that's going to set the whole industry back. So we're all sort of stewards in this, trying to figure it out and trying to figure out what's a meaningful use of the data versus just a creepy use of the data.
It's an ongoing use of data too. You have to provide the value on a day-to-day, week-to-week, hour-to-hour basis. So people are willing to give you that, but if you don't give them a reason and the value proposition, which is what Joe was going, they'll opt out very quickly into that experience. So we're fortunate in terms of the fact that we publish on every single screen, so the notion of having your favorite teams track you wherever you go is a value. We have over 11 million folks who play fantasy football around the NFL. That becomes an opportunity to be able to engage them one-to-one and give them value that exists to where they're willing to share more and more data with you. But then also how we use those with advertisers, we're very selective in terms of creating targeting opportunities for our clients, but at the same time not going too far as to make them feel that they gave up too much information to us.
Go ahead,
Joe.
I was just going to add, to that point, sometimes information is, in and of itself, tailored to the fan, the thing that's empowering. I mean, one of the most important aspects of sport is trash talking. And so, you can throw out the fodder to have that trash talk. It's important. And so when you look at, what we're doing with player tracking, which we announced at MIT Sloan this year, you actually see, how fast somebody react and things like that. It's all cool and it's all amazing. It all, shows people what great athletes we are. But it's also fodder for the trash talking. This guy's better than that guy. My favorite player is better than this favorite player. And that's also, the dissemination of data to folks to power that fandom in and of itself as a service.
Fred, I wanted to ask you to wrap up, because you're the one on the panel that has the most avid fans. Media companies, leagues, they, like you said before, people are football fans or baseball fans, but when you're a fan of a team, that is where you're at your most peak. So how do you think the fan relationship is changing for you at team level?
I'm not so much sure they're changing as much as we're changing. We're trying to extract more from them. They're the same people that they always were. And, we've been talking about fan affinity and fan rewards in the sports industry for years now. It's not a new thing. The technology's getting better. So we're coming up with more creative ways to create these programs. But I will still say that individually, these fan rewards programs, I'd say good percentage of them are going to be disappointing. You're going to get the first adopters, the super fans that will sign up for anything you put your name on. But beyond that, there is that trepidation, whether it's, I don't want to give you the info, or I just don't have time. I'm a fan on Sunday, I'll watch every game, but during the week, I'm just not going to do all that stuff. So the moral of that story for me is content. And that's where I come from. And to me, it all begins and ends with good content. If you don't have good content, I don't care if it's a fan reward program or your website or your app, people are just going to tune out. They're not going to be as avid as you want them to be. So invest in good content, whether it's video, the written word, delivery of that content. Invest in content and make it good content. And now you can build on that. Now you can ask people for more because you're really giving them something, not just asking them to be a fan and then extracting and being able to market to them better. Give them something, and the main thing you can give them is good content.
Well, thank you very much. That's exactly right. It's a two-way conversation. If we've gone so far away from the broadcast model, it's not one way anymore. It's two-way. So if you've got to give them that good content, and it's actually a good lead-in for my next panel when I'm speaking to the guys from Arsenal and Oscar and Kenny, because that's going to be one of the key topics that we're going to talk about. But that's it for this panel. Can I please get a round of applause for the panel, Michelle, Julian, Joe, Fred, and Eric. Thank you very much, guys.
Sign up for Sports Geek News at sportsgeekhq.com/sign up now.
Thanks again to everyone who contributed to the panel and for letting me use that audio for the podcast. And again, don't forget, if you haven't got the ebook related to my content presentation with digital campaigns around the world, you can get it by signing up for the newsletter. And links are in the show notes. If you're on the newsletter list and you haven't got it, please just send me an email, sean@sportsgeekhq.com. And I will send it to you. One other call to action just for the end of the podcast. If you could complete the Sports Geek podcast survey, I'd really appreciate it to know exactly what you'd like. Simply go to sportsgeekhq.com/survey to fill that out. And another one, if you can do a favour, if you're heading to South by Southwest and you want to hear a really cracking story, Rich Clark from Arsenal has pitched to do a panel on their performance around the FA Cup and how they covered that event from a digital point of view to engage their fans. There'll be a link in the show notes for you to vote up that panel for South by Southwest. It is on one of my things to do. I will get to a South by Southwest in the next year or two. That's it from me. Thanks again for downloading and listening to the Sports Geek podcast. As always, you can get me on Twitter at Sean Callanan or at Sports Geek. And you can always find me, use the old-fashioned way, and send me an email. If there's a way that I can help your team develop your digital presence and better connect with your fans, I'd love to work with you. Sean at sportsgeekhq.com will land in my inbox, and I'll do my best to reply to you as soon as possible. Cheers.
Check out which teams work with Sports Geek at sportsgeekhq.com/clients. Find all Sports Geek podcasts at sportsgeekhq.com/SGP. Please leave a review on iTunes. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/iTunes. Thanks for listening to the Sports Geek Podcast.